So all of you, please listen once again.
The first time I uttered a prayer was in a glass-stained cathedral. I was kneeling long after the congregation was on its feet, dipped both hands into holy water, traced the Trinity across my chest, my tiny body drooping like a question mark all over the wooden pew. I asked Jesus to fix me. And when he did not answer, I befriended silence in the hopes that my sin would burn and salt, my mouth would dissolve like sugar on tongue, but shame lingered as an aftertaste. In an attempt to reintroduce me to sanctity, my mother told me of the miracle I was, said I could grow up to be anything I want. I decided to be a boy. It was cute. I had snapped back, toothless grin, used skin knees as street cred, played hide and seek with what was left of my goal. I was it, the winner to a game the other kids couldn't play. I was the mystery of an anatomy, a question asked but not answered, tight roping between awkward boy and apologetic girl. And when I turned 12, the boy phase wasn't deemed cute anymore. It was met with nostalgic aunts who missed seeing my knees in the shadow of skirts, who reminded me that my kind of attitude would never bring a husband home, that I exist for heterosexual marriage and childbearing, and I swallowed the insults along with these slurs. Naturally, I did not come out of the closet. The kids at my school opened it without my permission, called me by a name I did not recognize, said lesbian, but I was more boy than girl, more Ken than Bobby. It had nothing to do with hating my body. I just love it enough to let it go. I treat it like a house, and when your house is falling apart, you do not evacuate. You make it comfortable enough to house all your insides. You make it pretty enough to invite guests over. You make the floorboards strong enough to stand on. My mother fears I have named myself after fading things. As she counts the echoes left behind by Maya Hall, Leela Alcon, Blake Brockington, she fears that I'll die without a whisper, that I will turn into what a shame conversations at the bus stop. She claims I've turned myself into a mausoleum, that I'm walking casket. News headlines has turned my identity into a spectacle. Bruce Jenner on everyone's lips while the brutality of living in this body becomes an asterisk at the bottom of equality pages. No one ever thinks of us as human, because we are more ghost than flesh, because people fear that my gender expression is a trick, that it exists to be perverse, that it ensnares them without their consent, that my body is a feast for their eyes and hands, and once they have fed off my queer, they'll regurgitate all the parts they did not like. They'll put me back into the closet, hang me with all their other skeletons. I will be the best attraction. Can you see how easy it is to talk people into coffins, to misspell their names on gravestones, and people still wonder while there are boys rotting their girl away in high school hallways. They're afraid of becoming another hashtag in a second, afraid of classroom discussions becoming like Judgment Day. And now, oncoming traffic is embracing more transgender children than parents. I wonder how long it will be before the trans suicide notes start to feel redundant, before we realize that our bodies become lessons about sin way before we learn how to love them. Like God didn't save all this breath and mercy, like my blood is not the wine that washed over Jesus' feet. My prayers are now getting stuck in my throat. Maybe I am finally fixed. Maybe I just don't care. Maybe God finally listened to my prayers. Thank you.
Yeah. So we got it. So this is the poem. It's a powerful poem, in fact. So let me give you an introduction, an overall introduction to this wonderful poem. What it's like to be a transgender. It is a soul-bearing poem which addresses the gender identity issues in the context of transphobia. You know what is phobia, right? Transphobia, fear, right? A transphobia. This transsexual, these marginalized people are considered as as abnormal, right? And the increased suicide rates among the transgender people. The poem is an autobiographical poem. I've already given you that there are some autobiographical elements in it. Mokob describes how he came out as a transgender. He came out as a transgender in 2015. Mokob describes how he came out as a transgender. The poem captures the identity crisis imposed on this transgender people every now and then by the mainstream culture. So yesterday I gave you an extract from a movie, a clip from a movie, right? And it was very clear that the mainstream culture, the mainstream society considers heterosexual as normal, homosexual and other transgenders are abnormal, and it was then considered as an illegal offense. Towards the end of the poem, it turns into a pessimistic mood, a pessimistic, not an optimistic, a pessimistic mode, having recognized one's non-acceptance in the world where religions preach universal love. So this is what's happening nowadays in the present society, that the preach that priest and the political leaders, the religious leaders, the social leaders, they preach for the universal love. At the same time, they hate. They'll have a disgust towards these marginalized people. So this is the greatest irony, and this is the greatest paradox of this society. You got it? So one's known acceptance in the world where religions preach universal love. And it will be clear once you go for the poem at the very first. It was set. It was set in a cathedral, in a church. Okay. So shall we go for the lines? Are you okay? So here comes the first part. What it's like to be a transgender. The first time I uttered a prayer was in a glass-stained cathedral. I was kneeling long after the congregation was on its feet. Dip both hands into holy water. Trace the Trinity across my chest. My tiny body drooping like a question mark all over the wooden pew. I asked Jesus to fix me, and when he did not answer, I befriended silence, in the hopes that my sin would burn and the sour my mouth would dissolve like a sugar on tongue. But shame lingered as an aftertaste, and in an attempt to reintroduce me to sanctity, my mother told me in the miracle I was, said I could grow up to be anything I want. I decided to be a boy. It was cute. I had snapped back, toothless grin, used to skin knees as street crud, played hide and seek with what was left of my goal. Okay, so this is the first part. Let me tell you once again. See, hope you can see the screen, right? Is this visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the first
Yes,
time
sir.
I uttered a prayer was in a glass stained cathedral. A glass stained cathedral. I was kneeling long after the congregation was on its feet, dip both hands into a holy water, trace the Trinity across my chest, my tiny body drooping like a question mark all over the wooden pew. So, what is the setting of this story, of this poem? What is the setting of this poem? Where is it set? What's happening there? There was a ceremony is going on, right? What is it?
Yeah.
Mamodisa, right? In Malayalam, you may say Mamodisa, crucifixion. The first time I uttered a prayer was in a glass-stained cathedral. A glass-stained cathedral. I was there when I was born, and I was there for the ceremony. Mamodisa ceremony, right? Naming ceremony. I was kneeling long after the congregation was on its feet. I was kneeling long after the congregation was on its feet. Dip both hands into the holy water. Okay, so these are the procedures there. Dip both hands into the holy water and spread some water, sprinkle some water on the head. Trace the Trinity across my chest. You know Trinity, that Kurishu. Trace the Trinity across my chest. Kurishu Ereka. My tiny body drooping like a question mark. At the birth itself, I was like a question mark. I'm drooping like a question mark all over the wooden pew. I was there in the pew. Pew means it's a bench in the church. There's a bench in the church, and I sat there. I was laid there. I was looked like a question mark there because nobody could or I couldn't understand what was my sex. I asked Jesus to fix me. I asked Jesus to fix me, and when he did not answer, I didn't get any answer. Am I audible to you? Is this clear?
Sir, కట్
Oh, okay. I asked Jesus to fix me, and when he did not answer, my tiny body drooping like a question mark all over the wooden pew, I asked Jesus to fix me. I asked the God to fix me. What is my sex? What is my sex? And when he did not answer, the Jesus did not answer me. I befriended silence in the hopes that my sin would burn and sour my mouth would dissolve like a sugar on the tongue. When you put a sugar on your tongue, it will dissolve, right? And I befriended silence. I befriended silence. I befriended seclusion. I befriended aloofness because this society looks at me like in an another way. So I befriended silence in the hopes that my sin would burn. And he used the word sin there. Is it a sin? Is it a sin to be born like that? Is it a sin to be born like that? So he used that word deliberately, right? So it was not a sin. It is not a sin, right? But shame lingered as an aftertaste. But what happened at last was an aftertaste of lingered of the shame. Shame. What I got at last is shame, the utter shame, disdain, despise, and in an attempt to reintroduce me to sanctity. My mother told me of the miracle I was. See, that's the word, miracle I was. Is it a miracle? Is it a miracle? So the mother told me of the miracle I was. There was a miracle happened in you. Said I could grow up to be anything you want or anything I want. And she said, her mother said, I could grow up to be anything I want. Okay, you can fix your sex. I decided to be a boy. So the boy decided to be a boy at first. And at first it was very cute. It was very normal. There was no abnormalities. It was he had a snapback. There's a cap, toothless grin. A smile shows very teeth. Used skin knees as a street cred. Cred is a slang poet. Sorry, slang word. And please keep in mind, he's a slang poet, right? He's a slang poet. So he has used some slang words here. Cred means credibility. Credibility in Malayalam, Vishwasyada. Okay. Knees as a street cred, played hide and seek with what was left of my goal. So what happened at first? I decided to be a boy. At first, it was very cute. It was very normal, and I'm comfortable with it because I had snapback, a toothless grin, used skin and played hide and seek with others right there in the street. So everything was very normal. Got it? Have you got it? So he was born like a boy. He was born like a boy with the organs, but his sexual orientation is female. Got it? This is what's happening there. Is this clear? Right? The first para.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then I was it. The winner to a game of the other kids couldn't play. I was the mystery of an anatomy. A question asked but not answered. Tight dropping between awkward boy and an apologetic girl. And when I turned to 12, the boy face wasn't deemed cute anymore. It was met with nostalgic aunts who missed seeing my knees in the shadows of skirt, who reminded me that my kind of attitude would never bring a husband home. I was it. The winner to a game the other kids couldn't play. The winner to a game the other kids couldn't play. I was the mystery of an anatomy. I was the mystery of an anatomy. See, that's a phrase there. That's a cute phrase, and it's a very strong phrase. I was a mystery of an anatomy. So nobody could fix my sex. Nobody could fix my body. This body. This is a. It was considered as a miracle, and it was a mystery. It's a question asked but not answered. Nobody answered me. A question asked. I asked the God. I asked the society. I asked my brother. I asked my siblings. Nobody answered. I didn't get any answer. Tight-roping between awkward boy. Tight-roping between awkward boy and apologetic girl. An awkward boy. So I was in between the apologetic girl and an awkward boy. So my sexual orientation is in between. I'm in a state of confusion. And when I turned to 12, when I was 12, am I audible? Because it's getting disconnected. That's why I'm asking you. Hello?
Yes, sir.
When I turned to 12, the boy face wasn't deemed cute anymore. So at first he decided to be a boy, right? But at 12, when he was 12, the boy face wasn't deemed, it wasn't cute anymore. It wasn't comfortable with anymore. I was met with nostalgic aunts who missed seeing my knees in the shadows of skirts, who reminded me that my kind of attitude would never bring a husband home. My kind of attitude would never bring a husband home. So the aunts, the relatives, the society, they all ridiculed me. They all ridiculed me. I was ridiculed by all this society. Okay, I was it, that I exist for heterosexual marriage and childbearing, because I am living in a society where marriage is considered as heterosexual, and a woman is supposed to bear the child. Woman is supposed to be married. A woman is not supposed to be studied for higher studies. Okay, supposed to be gone for higher studies. So that I exist for heterosexual marriage. I've given you what is heterosexual, right? Heterosexual means the opposite sex. So the society considers heterosexual as normal, homosexual as a crime, as an illegal one, as an offense. Got it? Something very egregious fault. Got it? And it was then considered as a criminal offense, right? And I swallowed their insults along their slush. And I swallowed their insult. I forgot all their insults. Okay, I bear all the insults. I swallowed all their insults. Naturally, I did not come out of the closet. So this is how the poet was confined into the closet, because society makes him. Naturally, I did not come out of the closet because I don't want to answer all those questions. Okay, I don't want to explain these things. The kids at my school opened it without my permission. The kids at school opened it. It means the organs. Okay, and they are very curious to know what sex he is in, or the party is in. So without his permission, the kids at school opened it because he is in a confusion. He is in a state of both girl and boy. You got the point? Okay, so called me by a name I did not recognize. They said lesbian. They called me lesbian, but I was more a boy than girl. I was more boy than a girl, more Ken than Barbie. You know that toys Ken, a character, like Ken than Barbie. Ken is the male character and Barbie is a female character, right? So animated characters. But I was more boy than a girl. It had nothing to do with my hating my body. So I can't hate my body. So society called me lesbian. The friends call me lesbian. And the onset, you can't marry, you can't satisfy the other sex. The kids at school opened it without my permission. Naturally, I did not come out of the closet. I remained in the closet. I stood still in the closet because I don't want to expose these kinds of despairs. I don't want to expose these these abnormalities. Okay, I just love it enough to let it go. I treat it like a house. And when your house is falling apart, you do not evacuate. You make it comfortable enough to house all you inside. You make it pretty enough to invite guests over. You make the floorboards strong enough to stand on. So this is a beautiful comparison. His body is just like a poet's body is like a house. I just love it enough to let it go. I treat my body like a house. I treat my body like a house. And when your house is falling apart, you do not evacuate. You're not supposed to evacuate, right? When a house is falling apart, you do not evacuate. Will you leave your house? No, you're not supposed to leave your house, but you make it comfortable enough. You make it comfortable enough and you make it stronger to house all your insides, to house it all your insides, to keep all your insides. You make it pretty enough to invite gets over, right? When it collapses, you are not living, but you make it pretty, you make it comfortable, you make it stronger to invite guests. You make the floorboard strong enough to stand on. So this is what I did. So there's a beautiful comparison. His body is like a house. So I don't, how could I hate, how could I loathe my body? This is my body, right? So after all, we are all narcissists. We love ourselves at first. If you don't love yourself, you can't love another person. That's a common thing, right? That's a natural thing. So you make it pretty enough to invite guests over. You make the floorboard strong enough to stand on. Okay. My mother fears I have named to myself after fading things, as she counts the echoes left behind by Mia Hall, Lila Alcorn, Blake Brackington. She fears that I'll die without a whisper. That I will turn into. What a shame! Conversations at the bus stop. She claims I have turned myself into a mausoleum, that I am a walking casket. That I am a walking casket. See, news headlines have turned my identity into a spectacle. Bruce Jenner on everyone's lips, while the brutality of living in this body becomes an asterisk in the bottom of equality pages. No one ever thinks of as a human because we are more ghosts than flesh. And because people fear that my gender expression is a trick, that it exists to be perverse. So that point is it's exactly explicated in the movie that I show, that I screened yesterday, because people fear that my gender expression is a trick, right? That character, Manikam's character, why he was arrested, because the society considers that their gender expression is a trick, that it exists to be perverse, that it is to be cheat others, that it's a trick. You got it? Is this clear?
Yes.
Have I made it sensible, the first part? You got it? From the birth itself, he's been suffering the kinds of problems, okay, from the society, from the family members, from the relatives, from the friends itself, okay. Got it. So he was in a state of confusion, and he's in a confusion and a state of confusion in between a boy and a girl. He can't fix it. Got it. So this is a clear-cut detailings of an experience of a transgender people. Okay, is this clear? So that's it. Let's stop it, and the remaining parts I'll give you in the next class. So all of you, please read the sections and please find out new meanings. Now it's your time. Any comments? Any doubts? Come on, go ahead. Hello.
No, sir, it ends.
Sorry.